This is Himang from Innovation, Sports and Life. Today, we are going to be talking about one aspect of the sustainability industry. We have with us Ved Krishna, who's the founder of Pakka Inc. At Pakka, Ved and his company, they build and invest towards sustainable packaging, which include bags, flexible packaging, and molded products from agricultural residues. It's a very interesting space, very exciting space. So we are here to learn about how Ved and his colleagues go about building these very impactful products. Ved, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you, Hemant. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So Ved, if you can tell us briefly, what are these agricultural residues that we are talking about?
So every fiber, Hemant, has its own intricacies. And it's like for us, fibers are like magic. So if you look at a piece of paper, there is no weaving, there is no adhesives, there's nothing that binds them together apart from what we call God energy. So it's basically what we call, in our technical terms, we call it the charge balance. So they are either cationic or anionically naturally charged, and they attract towards each other. So interesting thing is, and is it okay if I keep switching between
Yes,
Hindi and
please.
English? Is that, yeah? तो फिर
But
जो
yeah,
interesting है वो ये है कि if there is a bagasse fiber, it will get attracted more towards a bagasse fiber, and if it's a softwood fiber, it will do the same. So अपने भाई के पास जाता है ज़्यादा.
okay.
So anyways, the key is to really understand fibers and to play with them and to see what their strengths are. So typically what we use is sugarcane waste. And it has taken us 40 years to sort of learn, I would say, a very, very little bit about them. And we play with them. And fundamentally, like you said, there are three broad areas that motivate us. Our whole aim is, how do you leave the earth cleaner? And we do it through building packaging, because packaging is the biggest impact
True.
creator, and especially food packaging. So तीन areas हैं जहाँ पे we are active. One is flexible packaging. This is trying to replace the multi-layered substrates जो कि food packaging में जाता है. Things like potato chip bags, chocolate wrappers,
Got
etc.,
it.
etc. The second is bags, which has been our traditional paper bags, but we are also innovating a lot with mineral pellets, we call it, which is minerals and bioplastics. And the third is molded fiber, which is basically food service containers and food service kind of wear. All three, the base substance is sugarcane, and that's basically what we do.
So how did that journey start? Like, why specifically sugarcane? आपके पहले ये कोई करता था? Like, what did we do with sugarcane? Because हम तो I guess सदियों से खाते आ रहे हैं, right? गुड़ खाते हैं, शक्कर इतनी खाते हैं,
जी
तो sugarcane waste की कभी तो कमी हो ही नहीं सकती थी. So what did we do with that waste?
So it's been a journey like everything else. So my family somehow, हम लोग ऐसे originally तो राजस्थान से हैं, but somehow by stroke of fate, and it's an interesting story, but I won't get into that. But the family ended up in UP setting up sugar mills. तो मेरे जो grandfather थे, उन्होंने करीब 5 sugar mills उस area में लगाई. But then, as luck would have it, we got into a tough family separation with grandfather's brothers, and मेरे father के पास कुछ बचा नहीं था, and eventually he decided that whatever little capital he had, and my mother supported, जैसे अपने यहाँ कहानियां रहती हैं, she sold her jewelry and gave him some seed capital, and तो उसके basis पे he set up a mini paper mill, initially based on waste paper. तो उस समय, I'm talking about early 80s, तो उस समय lottery tickets बहुत मिलती थी, तो pulping those lottery tickets, and उसको फिर he used to make paper. But he had a very strong background in sugar and in straw board, which was made out of bagasse. तो ज्यादातर जो bagasse है उस समय waste होता था, and they would dump it primarily. They would obviously burn it a little bit to produce energy, लेकिन फिर भी excess बहुत बचता था. तो उस समय तो कौड़ियों के बाद भाव मिल जाता था. But obviously over time, we become big buyers, and then of course there are others who've come in, and sugar mills also expanded into burning more, creating energy from the sugarcane waste. So basically now the usages are those बिजली बनाते हैं या फिर जला के या फिर we people like us will take it and use it as a fiber. So the story was that that is how it was set up. And of course originally khali we used to make basically the brown craft paper that you get in different places. But then eventually we've transformed the whole business into moving into more impactful compostable packaging.
But the journey to a bag, और जब हम recyclable bag देखते हैं उसका एक ट्रांजैक्शनल पर्पस होता है. यू बॉट समथिंग, कुछ डाल दिया, वो लॉन्ग टर्म स्टोरेज होता नहीं है, उसमें हम बहुत ज्यादा स्ट्रेंथ भी एक्सपेक्ट करते नहीं है. लेकिन जब हम खाने की बात करें, लाइक चाहे फूड पैकेजिंग बैग हो और इफ इट इज अ ट्रे ऑफ फूड लाइक अ फॉर अ बफे थिंग, दैट प्लेट गेट्स हैवी. सो एक तो स्टडीनेस एक रिक्वायर्ड फैक्टर है. द अदर टू सम एक्सटेंट इज ऑल्सो, अगर आप उसमें खाना खाते हो तो वो मॉइस्चर भी ऑब्जॉर्ब करता रहेगा. सो इट डजंट हैव टू, इट कांट टेयर. पेपर बैग से आप वो एक्सपेक्ट करते हो कि गीला हो गया वो फट जाएगा, यू आर ओके विद इट एज अ कंज्यूमर. बट व्हेन इट कम्स टू फूड स्पेसिफिकली, that's a whole different challenge and a ball game, right? So can you just talk of how you address that problem more from an innovation perspective?
Yeah, that's exactly where a lot of the innovation and chemistry comes in. So ultimately, you're absolutely right. It's a natural fiber. तो वो absorb भी करेगा चीज को. स्ट्रेंथ भी, इट्स अ डेलिकेट फाइबर. भाई गन्ने का फाइबर देखो और कोई अच्छे लंबे रेशे वाली लकड़ी देखो तो इट्स अ वेरी डिफरेंट strength level. So that said, over the years, that's what we have done. Over the years, we've tried to make a relatively strong product, and we compete with the likes of softwood and things like that, even in the bag market, from a delicate fiber. And it's all about fiber morphology. कि कैसे आप fibers को lay करते हैं, and how do you make that mesh off, and how do you blend the fibers as well. So that's something that we've done over time. But that said, ultimately basics are basics. तो वो अगर weak fiber है तो ऐसा नहीं है कि आप उससे अत्यधिक तगड़ा कागज बना पाओगे. एंड देन द सेकंड पार्ट इज, आप जो बात कर रहे हो, ऑयल, ग्रीस, वाटर अब्जॉर्प्शन. So there again, there's different chemistries that we follow. So agar aap, if you look at our bowls or plates, we typically test them for 2 hours with 100 degrees water, 120 degrees oil, so that there is no absorption. If you use any of our products, I don't think you'll ever find any seepage or wo gal gaya hai aisa kuch. Recently, we've also launched a whole range of delivery containers. Wahan मतलब कि 3-4 साल हो गया मशक्कत करते हुए. तो eventually, it is things like wet strength resins that we've played with to give it integrity for a certain period of time. And that said, it's still a challenge to do absolutely hot liquids. जैसे गरम सांभर अगर आप डालोगे तो अभी भी हमको challenge आता है. But we are still working on it. We haven't given up. We are looking at numerous coating systems. Again, different ideas. The great thing is we have people who don't know that this can't be done. So we try. तो वो कभी ना कभी तुक्का लग जाता है, and you get some success out of it. But fundamentally, it's to do with fiber morphology and chemistry, and you keep playing with those two in an industry like ours.
This is so interesting because through this discussion you've touched upon a bunch of things which I'll like to dive a bit deeper into. But let's start with the chemistry, because there's a fair amount of science जो आप कर रहे हैं. But also another angle, to this is, I guess, where the industry is based. I'm assuming that a lot of the sugar mills may not be fully tech savvy. तो वो industry में काम करना to bring your own, I guess, innovations out and to scale it up, because one is proof of concept. जो आपने प्रूव कर लिया, लाइक ठीक है, ये स्ट्रेंथ आ गई, हमने टेस्ट कर दिया फॉर 2 hours at whatever temperature and it's fine. But from that point, how do you scale it up so that it becomes manufacturing friendly?
So हमारे लिए the whole, if you think about what is our primary goal now, we realize कि भाई our whole business is centered around a single idea: how do we leave the earth cleaner? Every person that you'll meet from Pakka will sort of talk about it, and we have a really high bunch of, like, really highly charged bunch of individuals in the organization. And तो बस वो कफन बंधा हुआ है सबके कि भाई किसी तरीके से पूरी कोशिश करनी है. And what we realize is कि खाली रियल इम्पैक्ट के लिए खाली एक ही तरीका है, विच इज स्केल, बिकॉज द साइज ऑफ द चैलेंज इज दैट ह्यूज. अदरवाइज वी कैन मेक अ लॉट ऑफ सोशल मीडिया ड्रामा एंड क्रिएट हाइप, बट उससे रियल इम्पैक्ट नहीं होने वाला है. सो द सिंगुलर आइडिया इज दैट हाउ डू यू स्केल. सो इन टर्म्स ऑफ, अभी जैसे वी हैव अ प्लांट इन अयोध्या, वी आर वर्किंग ऑन सेटिंग अप अ प्लांट इन सेंट्रल अमेरिका. तो अयोध्या वाला प्लांट typically uses almost, we buy almost 250,000 tons of bagasse every year. So that's the kind of scale we are at, and we are scaling it further this year to about 320,000 tons of bagasse every year. तो हमारे लिए जो बहुत जरूरी है is long term tie-ups with sugar companies. So we have to convince them. They have to see economic value end of the day. तो उनको वो जो है, दे विल वे इट अप कि भाई इसको जलाने में ज्यादा पैसा मिलेगा मेरे को, कि एथेनॉल के यूसेज में ज्यादा मिलेगा. एथेनॉल में भी दे यूज इट फॉर बर्निंग, नॉट फॉर क्रिएटिंग एथेनॉल. बट what is the highest value add? That said, a sugar company will never, they will always use it internal. जो उनका बिजली का consumption है, they'll always burn. So you cannot challenge that, because obviously they don't want to buy fuel from outside. But anything excess you can buy. So thankfully we've had very good partnerships, and people value our supply chain efforts, where we don't cause them any grief कि भाई उनका यार्ड क्लीन रहता है, टाइम से पैसा आता है, all that sort of, that chain is built, and we typically end up getting into 3 to 5 year tie-ups. So far it's been smooth. And same thing in Guatemala, where we are setting up our next plant. There we are looking at almost 600,000 tons of bagasse, and so it's almost double of Ayodhya. And we are again looking at very much more sophisticated kind of products on this side of the world. तो वो हो रहा है. Then we are looking at Northern Africa for the European region. We are looking at Philippines and Vietnam for the Australasian region. वो पता नहीं कैसे होगा, पैसा कैसे आएगा, ये सब नहीं पता है, बट ये पता है करना है. तो बाकी चीजें फिर होपफुली लाइन अप होंगी.
वो तो पक्का हो जाएगा. No, no, the impact is great, and I think what also I tend to see from the world of innovation, particularly, is that someone who's bringing a new idea, that person is passionate. So let's say if that was you. Now to have a entire team, जो vision में believe करती है, and to live the ethos, that's very difficult. How did you go about that?
I think these things are infectious. As human beings, हम लोग सब कुछ ना कुछ higher purpose के लिए कहीं ना कहीं काम करना चाहते हैं. Some are expressed, some are unexpressed. अब वो कोई चीज कोई पागल बंदा बार बार दोहराता रहेगा तो कहीं ना कहीं तो इफेक्ट आएगा. And then we've attracted a lot of people like that over time. So there is numerous, like our head of innovation sits out of the same city as you in Bangalore. We have 10,000 square foot space in IISC, and most of our innovation happens there. वो बेचारा आराम से फिनलैंड में बैठा हुआ था सालों से. अब उसको बात कर करके, and we were friends for 20-21 years. लेकिन I said वापस आओ यार, बैंगलोर क्या कर रहे हो फिनलैंड में? We have to do things. You can't just sort of benefit the West. So eventually he got convinced and he came. And his team has another woman who was in Sweden, another guy who was in Israel. So these are a bunch of crazy people. And, just with that idea that, no, I want to do something. I want to create something which has not been created. So people like that are there. Our head of जो पूरा हमारा molded fiber का range है, Chuck, जिसका brand है, that is headed by Satish, who again was 10 years he was working in products with 3M in US. फिर अपना own startup किया यहाँ आके, that had its own churn, but now is leading that. Our CEO for the entire manufacturing, again, has been all over the world, looked at numerous systems, worked in numerous companies in India also. So just, I would say कि, I would just say कि energies हैं. And जब वो अपने आप synchronicity बनती जाती है, and people keep getting sort of together. But yeah, I'm totally blessed that way. It's a bunch of very, very passionate people across. It's not just manufacturing or innovations. Whether you take something like team building or HR or anything else, it's very passionate about building a certain kind of organization.
Another thing which I appreciate about your organization, and just doing some background, research for for our discussion today, one thing that impressed me is that you put metrics on your website, like whether it's energy consumed, even if it goes up. It's not like, you're trying to show that, oh, we are always on the path to lower a parameter. It happens that experiment karte hai, kuch hota hai, things don't go our way, but you're reporting all that in the public domain. And I think that also serves as a benchmark that, this is not just for our company to see, it's for the world to see. The world is rating us on these parameters. Whether they that affects our day to day immediately is not known, but I think that's a great way to inspire people in your organization.
So we are an extremely transparent, matlab ki I would say it's a very interestingly transparent organization. So, for example, every person in the organization has to go through finance training. Every person has to be able to, because we feel there's a great book which I read long, long back. It's called The Great Game of Business. And uska pura jo tathya hai, wo hai ki bhai, at any given point, you're either adding value or eroding value. And, whether you're walking from A to B, is that adding value or eroding value? And in terms of money, kahin na kahin to impact hai uska. So one is that everybody must understand their costing, what is P&L, what is cash flow, what is a balance sheet. And this includes all the contract people as well, not just, it's across the company. हम लोग वित्त जागरण करके उसका नाम है, उस पूरे system का. And it's really important. Second is we start the day with an assembly. And उसमें जो है सारी चीजें, and the speakers are connected across the campus, and every figure is announced. That, what was it yesterday, how much behind, how much ahead are we today to date. So it's across not only that, if you go to a paper machine of ours or any of the profit centers, so to say, वहां पे एक बड़ा सा डिजिटल बोर्ड होगा, उसमें एक फिगर चल रही होगी, वो हरी होगी या लाल होगी, which is basically the single parameter that we work with is something called contribution per hour. And उसमें वो सारा सब कुछ encapsulate हो जाता है. तो and obviously everything is automated. So if the control is in the hand of the operator, so what happens is कि अगर operator को लगता है ये मेरा लाल चल रहा है, he can fiddle around with things. He can decrease a certain chemical, he can increase the speed, and he can watch the board change to green. So post-mortem to karna, I would say sab karte hain, but that is not really, doesn't give benefit. Ab baad mein P&L dekh ke karoge kya? Even if you're seeing it on a daily basis, it's done. It's after effect. Why don't you give controls to everybody on the shop floor and align? So everybody in the company is a stockholder. We are a listed company, but everybody after 2 years of service becomes an owner and gets stocks over time. So one is that the directly correlation here with the wealth creation also. Everybody has a share in the profits through it's a very transparent system. You can calculate your own bonuses. There is no, even salary increments, more or less, you can calculate yourself. It's a very sort of transparent system. So we've tried over time to sort of devolve this whole hierarchical mindset and mechanism. Ki mera audha ye hai. So there are no designations inside the company. Inside the company, everybody's designation is a head. Head basically means a role. And it could be a business head or a toilet head or a paper machine one head or a welding head or whatever, but it's all head. So there is no GM, VP, whatever designations we use. तो उससे भी बहुत सारे जो अहम है, अहंकार है, वो काफी कम हो जाता है. And we are able to work on our roles instead of working on our ego. So that over time it has evolved. So it's become a little bit of a funky atmosphere. So कई लोग बाहर से adjust भी नहीं हो पाते हैं. That's the other challenge. I had a large challenge. I was trying to hire somebody for HR, in fact, and she was just appalled that I would not call her a CHRO or something. So मैंने बोला यार ये सब तो समझ में ही नहीं आता है. आप designation आप कुछ भी ले लो, but you can't, it has to be a head. So you can be ideally, I don't even like HR, but you can be team excellence head or whatever you want to do. Yeah. So, but it was difficult for her to sort of even adjust to that idea.
Yeah, I empathize with you. I'm just going to digress a bit. I don't like it when people are referred to as resources. People
yeah. Like I also don't like the term employee. That's a very
हाँ,
funny term for me as
देख,
well, because then it's a division, employer, employee, एक दरार आ गई बीच में.
हाँ. But on that note, see, आपकी journey से I have somewhat of a parallel because I come from a family that was into textile businesses. Like uh, analogous to yours, my grandfather, they had moved from Gujarat to Mumbai. They started working in the textile industry, which is, and some point wo factories jaise bhi thi, there were issues. And like, again, analogous to yours, I've seen many, not just in, like just around that textile space, family businesses may some divisions hote hai, and then someone is left unhappy versus another. Now, उससे क्या होता है when people start their own businesses, somehow वो control freaks बन जाते हैं कि ये मेरा business है and they are the whole and soul owners of that. इनफैक्ट जो सारे strategic decisions लेते हैं वही लेते हैं, पूरी फाइनेंस की समझदारी वो 1 or 2% एंटिटीज को ही होती है, जनरली स्पीकिंग फ्रॉम द फैमिली. तो वहां से ट्रांजिशन करके, लाइक पर्टिकुलरली इन योर केस, राइट, कि आपने सबको ओनर्स बना दिया है. हाउ डिड दैट कम अबाउट?
So it's a very interesting story, actually. So we also were a very small company. Father ne, literally pai ikhatta karke, he started this organization. And of course, when you start from that founder ka jo, baggage rehta hai, because you start from a place of scarcity. So you're always trying to save. And it was a very typical, because he was trying to do everything. So it was a very typical company, supervisors, ye, wo, tam, jham, so usme jaisa hota hai, वैसा था. And then एक बहुत famous हादसा हुआ, which was the 1992 Babri Masjid demolition. So interestingly, the company was only 6-7 kilometers from the disputed site. And उस समय हुआ क्या कि it was complete curfew. And that time there were no mobile phones. Even the phones used to hardly work. And there was complete curfew in the sense कि कुछ भी movement नहीं allowed था. So at that point, the so-called officers, managers used to live in the town, and जो हमारे workers थे, they used to live around the factory. They used to come from the villages around, and there was so since basically communication ही बंद हो गया, so nobody knew what was the situation in the factory. लेकिन जब there was so it was assumed कि obviously the factory has to shut down. Because there is no raw material कैसे लोगे आप, sales कैसे करोगे, fuel कैसे लोगे, etc. etc. As luck would have it, or as the design would have it, कि भाई when they went back after a month, this was the highest production the company had ever done. People had self-organized, gotten material from the village roads, even dispatched some material, and ensured that there was no stoppage. And so my father at that time realized कि ये जबरदस्ती हम इतना सारा drama करते हैं, that there'll be reporting, somebody will give permission. So we started working on something जो अपने traditional systems हैं. He called it Sankhya Pranali. And
संघीय प्रणाली.
self-managing teams,
ठीक है.
self-managing teams, basically. That how do you devolve the idea that basically इसका definition हमारे colleague ने अभी recently दिया, somebody, he said management से पूछेंगे. So we said ये management कौन है? तो he said पैसा जो देता है, that's management. So we said okay, तो भाई पैसे को devolve करना है, that means पैसा should never be in somebody's control. Paisa should be with the team. So team decides. So all decisions are devolved only then. नहीं तो theory. So as soon as you give the financial grip to autonomous self-managing bodies, then you can sort of really empower. Or in theory, who are you to empower? But for the sake of language, brings in numerous barriers. But basically, that is the way the organization has evolved. And a lot of decision making is done autonomously in the organization, and we have benefited from that significantly. फिर हमारे ऊपर भी तो जोर कम हो जाता है ना, and then people feel like it is theirs. So that's the big evolution that happened from that crazy incident. But हमारे को फायदा हो गया उससे कि बाकी तो जो हुआ नहीं हुआ, but at least the organization learned a lot, and it's been a journey. We are still on a journey. रोज गलतियां करते हैं, रोज कुछ सीखते हैं. But the overall idea is that how do you become a place where there's a certain reason why energies collide. So the onus is ki bhai, how do you ensure that you're providing the highest, working towards providing the highest potential opportunity to that energy. So that's the basic thought process in our management ethos.
For that 92 incident, I think what also shows that people will only take those kind of decisions if they felt empowered in the first place. So although जो आपके वो structures वो थे पहले, एक level of respect तो था ही, otherwise, you know, वो कौन करता है other, because they would have just said कि अच्छा फैक्ट्री बंद है, हम नहीं आते काम पे, या मैनेजमेंट ने कुछ कहा नहीं तो हम कुछ नहीं करते, तनख्वाह तो मिलेगी, because we were showing up, मैनेजमेंट नहीं आया तो क्या हुआ. So it showed कि एक empowered structure तो था ही, just okay एक formal structure था. But maybe what I'm curious about is आपके personal level पे, because a lot of these things are they sound nice, but they're very hard to do. It's very hard to take yourself out from the role that I am going to strategize, I'm going to do the innovation, or rather I'm going to leave this to someone else. Did you face a situation like that? You were in charge of something and now you're like, no, I need to step back, I need to bring someone else in.
Yeah, it was very, very, it took time. Kya hota hai, when you are a second generation entrepreneur, at least in my case, I really looked up to my father. तो वो हमेशा था कि भाई फादर जैसा बनना है, although my father would not have ever wanted that. But at some point, I think अभी भी I still probably struggle with it at some level of my being. But it took me about 14-15 years to realize कि वो कुबत है नहीं कि वैसा बनने की, तो अपने जैसा ही बनने की कोशिश करते हैं. And what I also realized is that strengths are very different. So for me, strategizing, visioning, more surface level work is easier than in-depth operational excellence. तो वो अकल आते आते टाइम बहुत लगा और नुकसान बहुत किया, इन द सेंस कि ये नहीं पता था आज बंद होगी कि कल बंद होगी कंपनी. वी वेंट इनटू रीस्ट्रक्चरिंग, ऑल सॉर्ट्स ऑफ डैमेज. And at some point, I realized कि it's about time you fire this guy. जो बीच में रोड़ा बन के खड़ा हुआ है, which was me, trying to sort of be a hero. So eventually I did, but then that was also a learning journey. It took about 5 CEOs after me to be able to settle. And eventually, Jagdeep, who is the CEO now, and me, we have very, very different point of views, but we work well. And that stabilized the company, and that's what's given the possibility of thinking beyond one factory, one site, all sorts of other things जिसमें हम wrap up हो जाते हैं. And it's, I would say, the struggle is never done, in the sense कि भाई कुछ ना कुछ तो evolution, अभी भी evolution चल रहा है. How do you hand over more? How do you again look at what is my greatest contribution? What is the greatest contribution that can be? Till you, I think वो दिक्कत again अहम की हो जाती है ना. Till you think you are the one who's capable, तभी तक दिक्कत है. जब वो अकल आ जाती है कि अपने को कुछ आता जाता है नहीं, तो थोड़ा easier हो जाता है. So you start finding better people, and people start connecting, and you start realizing that you have to let go to be able to do it. What I also realize is कि मैंने तो बहुत मेहनत की है डुबाने की, डूबा नहीं. So there is some higher energy that is sort of taking care of this. So let the energy guide, and do as what sort of what the guidance you receive, I would say.
You say it so easily. It's very hard to do. और ये realization कैसे आया? वो आपने खुद को आया, वो numbers देखकर कि problem मैं हूँ, या कोई और था जो आपको आईना दिखा रहा था?
I think couple of things. एक तो when we were in financial doldrums, and I would always say कि मैं तो खाली इस business में मेरे father को support करने के लिए आ गया. मेरा कोई intention नहीं था इस व्यापार में आने का. And because my father wanted out and there was nothing else, he was struggling with it. I said, चलो चल के help कर देते हैं, we'll see. So my wife would ask me कि you keep saying this, अगर कोई barrier नहीं होता आपके जीवन में, nothing was stopping you, what would you have done then? So each time I would reflect on that, it would be I would have done something to do with nature. I would have done something to do with ecology. And of course, at that time, it wasn't apparent कि इसमें कुछ भी ecological है, because as a pulp and paper manufacturer, you consume a lot of water, you consume a lot of energy, you drain a lot of water, etc., etc. But उसी समय, one of my gurus I met at that point, and he taught me 4 very important things. And I think that's what transpired and changed the thinking. The first was there are no coincidences in life. तो वो कोई कारण है जिससे भाई, whether you come into business or whatever it is, there's some energy at play. तो ये कह देना कि भाई ये तो इत्तेफाकन हो गया है, आपकी मन का वहम है. And so that was number one. Number two was that you have to build on what you have. Instead of trying कि भाई मैं तो हिमालय में जाऊंगा और 2 साल मेडिटेट करूंगा और फिर अपना नॉर्थ स्टार खोजूंगा और then I'll really know. इससे कुछ मिलने मिलाने वाला है नहीं, ट्राई कर लो. But point is that you've already accumulated a wealth of experience, knowledge, and see what you can do based on that, on top of that, how you can move from there. The third was that your life is not about yourself. It's about the contribution you make towards something else, towards a higher purpose, or towards other people. So you move away from that syndrome कि मैं क्या करूंगा, मैं थोड़ा सा कम हो जाता है. And fourth is that nothing is, your contribution can be don't let your mind stop you from sort of dreaming big. कि ये जो कान के बीच की जगह है ना, वो सारे लॉजिक दे देती है कि कैपिटल नहीं है और ये नहीं है और कुवत नहीं है और whatever else, so all those are excuses. Think 1000x. So I think these 4 things really played a big impact in my life. And उससे ये हुआ कि भाई कम से कम ये अकल आ गई कि this is already there. We are in the packaging business. We are doing nothing about it. Most of our paper was, एक साइड हॉट मेटल लगता था, दूसरी साइड पॉलीएथिलीन लगता था, वो सोप रैपर बन जाता था. So we can take that and provide something else. And that's around the time we started setting up an innovation team, creating new products. And so that was around 2012, 13. And also around 14, I decided that I need to fire myself. So it was that chain of events. Ki bhai, if I'm too stuck in operations, there's never any end. Every day will be excitement. आज boiler बंद है तो आज वो बंद है, तो आज sales हुए दुखी है, आज customer गुस्सा है, आज supplier में दिक्कत है, आज cash flow की दिक्कत है, आज bank नहीं मानता है. There is no end to that. So there will be no days lacking excitement. But you have to get off that excitement to find another excitement. So that basically was the brief journey. Of course, there is more complexities within that.
That's a great takeaway, that focus on your strengths and play to those. And for the ones where you may think you're good, but figure out a way to get some honesty into it and empower others who excel in those duties. And so just probably one final question, in the sense that, can innovation come from anyone in your company, or does it just come from one design group?
No, absolutely. So again, there are numerous things that have evolved over time. Everybody in the company is continuously, beyond their responsibilities, always working on one project. So it's called, अंग्रेजी टर्म के FIP बोलते हैं, focused improvement plans. So everybody, and it's a self-taken kind of objective. So typically, the whole process of innovation is continuous. The innovation team fundamentally works on path-breaking stuff. कि भाई हमको next stage of products क्या बनाने हैं. Ideation तो सभी जगह से आएगा. But so a lot of innovation happens within the organization in every area, and a lot of things we won't even get to know, because people are so autonomous that they may be doing things which we get to know much later. अरे ऐसा हुआ था आपके यहाँ. So that's something that is that keeps happening. But the innovation team itself will work on next stage of products. But that's not the only innovation. Innovation is in every area of work.
Yeah. Wonderful, Ved. Thank you so much for sharing this journey today. I know we can go on, and I think the different aspects of your journey are worth separate discussions on their own. And you're a wonderful explainer. Wish you all the very best for what you're doing at Pakka. आपका success तो पक्का है. I can say that for sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your kindness. We'll definitely be trying very, very hard. बाकी ऊपर वाले के हाथ में.
Done. There are no coincidences. हो जाएगा.
Thank you, Himang. Thank you for having me on the show.